Hi, this is Mindy Jackson, and our book and build today is from the book Extra Yarn by Mac Barnett and illustrated by John Klassen. So, we are going to have some good fun with yarn today. So, the story of the Extra Yarn is about little Annabelle who finds magical yarn in a box that never seems to run out, no matter how much she knits for her town. Her town is very gray and dull, with some grouchy people in it as well. But Annabelle decides to just continue to knit her colorful sweaters that you'll see for people, for buildings, for animals. There is even a villain who comes and tries to buy and then steal Annabelle's yarn. But in the end, Annabelle still gets to joyfully knit in her never ending magical yarn. So what we did with our extra yarn is made many knitted hats and also knitted bracelets. So we will go through that process. So these mini hats are perfect for water bottle lids, perfect size for that. But problem with that is make sure you don't throw it away when you throw away your water bottle. So to begin this process, you take a toilet paper roll and you cut it about 1 inch. Each one of these strands you see were not cut very particularly, but they are about 10 inches long. Fold it in half, and then as you pull the loop through the inside, then you pull the two tails through the other side. This probably took about 20 pieces. It all depends on how thick of yarn you use. The one I chose was very thick. And as you continue to do your loops going all the way around, it is very important to continue to push them together to make sure that you are keeping it tight, because this is the base of the hat. And so if it is too loose, your hat will not stay together. So right now we're in kind of that using process of taking the pattern that I was shown and creating it. And it's exciting when you get to that tinkering process of what happens if we do a different size of ring. What if we use cardstock or something larger to be able to make a really big hat as opposed to our mini knitted ones? Then experimenting later with larger ways, finding more effective ways to get it to stay. When we get to the next point, you will see what I mean there. You have to be very careful during this point as you are pulling them tight. I want to make sure that you do not rip the cardboard. So this was the last piece, pulled tight, and you will see how many there are there. So now we take all of those strands of yarn and pull them through the hole. And as you do that and begin to pull it out, you will now see the base of your hat. And spend a moment trying to make sure everything is pushed in right and lined up well. And this is the base of the beanie. And then the next step is taking another piece of yarn and attaching it about halfway or so, because right now what we are creating is the head portion of it, what would normally go on someone's head. So pull that tight and double knot it to ensure it stays there. And then after you trim those pieces off, now the last step of this project is to trim this craziness on top to look like the ball on top of a beanie. So depending on how long you made your pieces, you might end up cutting off a whole lot like I did. That's why it is important to have them a little longer, so you have room to cut off. So at this point, kind of fray the ends of it and just continue to shape it until you are happy with the way that it looks. There are many ways that you could do this, especially multicolored, which is not something that I thought about till just now. But definite ways you can make these creative or bigger or smaller. So here was the final product. This was the first one that I had tried. That was one my daughter made as an example for me. And that was the one that I just created. I think we still need some work on those. So our next one is some straw knitting. We're going to make some bracelets. So this one is the one that we are about to make in the video, and this is one that I had previously created with that same yarn as the hat. So first step is to cut yarn a few inches longer than a straw. Hack I learned when you need to get it through a straw is to suck the yarn through the straw. But be very mindful of making sure you're holding one end of it, or else you end up with a mouthful of yarn like I did multiple times. So after it is threaded through, then you tie those three together at the end. Once you have them tight and ready, you take tape and tape the three straws together. What I did here was probably too large of a piece of tape. Probably would be better had it been thinner. I used kind of a wide packing tape. And once it is attached together, then you attach it down to, in this case, my kitchen bar. You will take a piece of yarn that is attached to a ball, or either I did not use the ball, I just kept pulling yarn off. But you will double knot it to one of the straws. And the process is really simple, of just over and under, over and under as you go. Yeah, I had a little bit of issue keeping it down. So you will see I'm going under the orange and over the blue, and then under the blue and over the orange, and under the green and over the green. So this is just your simple basic pattern. And as you can see, after you've done about 3 or 4 lines, it is best to push it toward the top. That is what will make your yarn bracelet tight, is depending on how tight you have pushed that together. So recommend every 3 or 4 rows trying to do that. And yes, I will push it up again there. I will show you later the problem with the kind of straws that I used. At this point, I'm going to change the color of the yarn. It is, I'm sure there is a better way of doing it than what I did, because in the finished product, you can really see one of the color changes. But I've tied them together and I'm trimming the excess, and now just going to continue with that over under pattern, going over the green, under the green, over the orange, under the blue, over the blue, and continue also doing the push up pattern after these 4 rows. I will push it up again. And there's my dog Abby. So I will continue this process. The problem that I did have with this was used a bendy straw, and you'll see why later, why that could be a problem, but this is supposed to slide easily. Previously on the other one, I used very large, thick, hard straws with very thick yarn, and that I had done so tight was difficult when it was time to pull it off, which will be our next part. I'm now changing colors from teal to gray. I didn't exactly measure it, just looked like about time to change. When doing this, there are so many amazing patterns that could be created in the experimenting phase. Maybe also finding more effective ways of holding it and how to pull it off more easily. But this was used for a bracelet. But an amazing thing about this is that you can easily use a longer, probably not straw, but I read about someone using a dowel rod, and they were able to make headbands and longer things from dowel rods. And so now we are to the end where I will cut and go around the last straw that I went over and under, which was the blue one. And you will now remove the tape from the bar, and then you'll take all of the tape needs to come off. I had an issue right there of the things coming with it, so I had to use my hack again of sucking the yarn through when I lost it. And so once those were pulled tight, I still had some tape on the yarn or on the straws, which was part of the problem. So once I get that tape off, it is a bit of a process for me to pull it off because of that bendy straw. And I have to do my hack again. Because of the bendy straw, it made it very difficult to pull the yarn off. So at this point, it is just a matter of little by little getting the yarn to come off toward where it is knotted at the top. You can create so many different things with these. You can do headbands, you could do scarves. There are a million things you can do with yarn, and that is a great part of the creating aspect is there are so many things that can be sold. If you look everywhere, there's macrame, there's of course like hats and scarves, lots of creations, mug warmers. I was going the wrong way there for a second. And as you can see, it is kind of a slow process of getting that off for me. But that is a great thing about yarn with the UTech model. And that is what it ended up looking like in the end once I finally got it off. And it did kind of come apart, but I was able to push it back together. So now it's just a matter of double knotting that and trimming that off. And now we will, sorry, it went over my wrist. Now we look at the UTech model like we talked about, that you're given that pattern, but then changing the yarn and the patterns and the loops and how can it be improved upon and used easier? And then what could you sell? What kind of problem could you solve? A hot coffee mug, give it a little sweater. So many things that can be done with the yarn. Here was my copycat snowflake that I assume was supposed to be bells and angels is what it looks like. But that was a lot of fun to create and using the snowflake maker. Give credit to my people behind the knitting. The first one, my daughter Megan, was the personal tutorial for the hat knitting that she learned in her middle school art class. And the straw weaving was from Debbie Chapman on her blog, One Little Project. And that is where I got my knitting ideas. Thanks for watching.